but look how pretty this is, and it's really doable.
So I definitely went rogue. This is nowhere near the recipe in the book. My toxic trait is definitely that I like to cook fancy things, but I have 3 small children. Hello everyone, it is a new week of videos and spring has sprung. It is so beautiful. In my last video, I cooked out here with my crock pot, and it was the first time I'd done that, and it was a game changer. The house didn't stink like food, and anyway. So today I have brought out my hot plate. I got this for canning because we have a glass cooktop and we live in a rental house, and I was so nervous to can on the glass cooktop, even though my research said it should be doable. I didn't want to risk it. So I brought this out here, and I was gonna set it on the table, but it gets really hot underneath it, so I thought maybe I should put it up here. And then I put this foil there so my grill doesn't get super splattered. Anyway, we're making ginger pork spring rolls tonight. Let's get started cooking dinner. I have to cook up some pork out here, and then we're gonna go add it to some veggies inside. The sun is starting to set just a tiny bit, so it's not so bright out here anymore. Today I'm gonna be cooking out of this book. We really like this book. It's like 30 minutes or less, I think. Anyway, 30 minutes or less. And there are so many good recipes in here that are really great for weeknights. This one is the ginger pork spring rolls. They're supposed to be wrapped in spring roll wrappers, but we could never find those. And so we used just like egg roll wrappers, and then we sort of fried them in a pan. And they're delicious. So I don't follow the recipe exactly. Today we actually do have some spring roll wrappers because I sent my husband to find the egg roll wrappers and the store was sold out. So we have spring roll wrappers and some leftover egg roll wrappers. I'm going to try them both ways and see what we like better. Okay, first I have to get this sauce mixed up. It's hoisin and soy sauce and some ginger. Generally, I think of our health and the food we put in our bodies as a spectrum. And there's no food that's really like totally off limits in our house, but we try to control what we can so that when there's something that we can't really control or that there's just not a great option for, that's where we will acquire our toxins rather than something that is well within our control. And then that way we make sure that we're not treating our bodies poorly, you know? Ginger. It calls for fresh, but I use ground. Okay. Asian chili garlic sauce. I haven't looked at the ingredients on this in a long time. Not the worst. It's just the chili peppers, water, sugar, rice vinegar, garlic, and cornstarch, and acetic acid. That could definitely be worse. Not terrible. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do is get the veggies mixed up. It's just coleslaw mix, scallions, and cilantro, which is super easy. One thing that I don't like about this recipe though is this is 3 things that we have to have fresh. So this one always requires us to go to the grocery store. Okay. All right, and then cilantro. I'm just gonna roll it up tightly into a ball, chopping it a little bit easier. Okay. I have just about had it with these knives. Somebody suggested, I said I was debating whether or not to get a knife sharpener or to just get new knives. Somebody said that they make knife sets that have a sharpener on the base. I haven't looked into it yet, but that sounds very nifty, like a good investment. Okay, that is all done, and now we can add our pork. Okay, looks good. I cooked up the pork, I drained some of the grease, and then I added the sauce in. Just let the flavors meld for a minute. I'm gonna take it back in.
Okay, so this filling is a winner. This is a tried and true recipe, but I was struggling on this day. We had these egg roll wrappers in our freezer and they did not keep very well. I ended up with 4 egg roll wrappers that I could put the filling in, and the rest were just crumbly and cracking. So we got 4 of our tried and true egg rolls. And then I tried these spring roll wrappers, and we will never use them again. They were really a learning curve that I was not prepared for on this day. It turns out you have to soak these first, and I didn't realize you had to soak them one at a time. I put a whole stack of them in the tray, and they all stuck together. So lesson number one at a time. And then they were easy enough to roll, but it was just, it was kind of a pain to have to keep soaking them. And then the recipe book does not say to fry these. It says you can eat them just like this. And we did try one like that, and it was all right. But the actual package of spring roll wrappers said that you could fry them very briefly. And so that's what we ended up doing with most of them. And they were tasty. They were all right, probably because this filling is always good. I mean, this is a really good filling. But we did not prefer the spring roll method, and we will go back to doing the egg rolls for sure. So if you have this cookbook and you try this recipe, literally all we do different is we put the filling in egg roll wrappers and we fry those, and they're tasty.
Okay, so I'm going to start by frying up the spring rolls that are in the egg roll wrappers. This is our tried and true. This is how we usually do it. You just fry them up until they're golden on each side, and you turn them a couple times. You don't have to stress too much because the filling is already cooked, so you're really just toasting the wrappers. And then my pan was lopsided, so I stuck oil under the legs, and now my oil is evenly dispersed. So hopefully they turn out.
So here are the finished egg rolls. These are always good. And the spring rolls turned out okay, but another thing I learned about them is you can't lay them on paper towels to drain the grease off because they will stick to the paper towels. So they had to go on parchment, and this whole thing was just chaos. But here's our finished plate. I served it with some rice noodles cooked with sesame oil, and it was tasty.
Hello everyone. If you can't tell, it is nap time around here. And today I am going to make a barbecue chicken thigh with some roast potatoes on the side. And I'm trying this bread recipe that I saw on Instagram, and it looks so good. It's a sourdough discard garlic. It's a sourdough discard garlic herbed pull apart bread. So I have this lovely dough here. I don't know. I wish you guys could smell things in this kitchen. This lovely dough. And it has to rise for about 60 to 90 minutes, which is why I'm cooking dinner during nap time. So I'm going to let that rise, and then as soon as my thighs are thaw, I am going to season them up with some barbecue seasoning. My husband will probably grill those for me, and then I'll just cook the potatoes later.
For as fancy as this bread ended up looking, it was really easy. After the rise, you just cut it into 12 pieces, and then you shape each of these into a ball and then into a 4-inch disc. And then you end up spreading softened butter along it, and then you fold it in half, and then you lay it fold side down in the pan. And that's how you get the pull apart texture and look. So this really didn't take long at all. This part maybe took 5-10 minutes to fold these and get the butter in there. And yeah, we will definitely be making this again. One mistake I did make is I used all of the butter, spreading it on the inside, and apparently you are supposed to save some and spread it across the top. And so this was really delicious, but you could definitely tell at the end that the top of the bread was just a tiny bit dry, and definitely could have used that butter on top. So I will have to do that better next time. But look how pretty this is, and it's really doable. There was nothing crazy about this recipe. Next, I chopped up some red potatoes. We usually cook with the Yukon Gold or the russets, but we've just been getting really bored of those, or at least I have. So I bought a bag of these this time, and I did them really simply. I just chopped them up, put salt and olive oil on them, and then I put them in the oven at I think like 400 or 425. It doesn't matter that much. You just leave it in there until they are fork tender. This bread came out so well. I did pull it out because I thought the top was getting a little too brown. But next time I will put some foil over the top towards the end and cook it just a little bit longer. Towards the middle of the loaf, it was just a little bit soft. But look how good that looks with the melted butter on there and the herbs already. This was awesome. And then the best part of this meal, I just delivered the chicken for my husband to cook. This is one of the best parts of summer for me. And here are the potatoes all cooked up. And here's the final meal. This was a really nice spring summer meal.
Hi everyone, it is Saturday night. I am going to make a chicken tortilla soup. I have a recipe that I was going to use out of this cookbook. However, it's a calorie smart cookbook. I'm not really a calorie conscious cook. We care about health, but we care about other parameters. We don't really care about the calories. And looking through the recipe, I sort of rethunk my approach. I don't think it sounds very flavorful. So I'm just going to use that as inspiration, and I'm going to do my own thing. The recipe wanted chicken breast just chopped up and thrown in there, like already cooked some other day. And I wanted to have a little bit more flavor. So I cooked up some chicken thighs, skin on, bone in chicken thighs. I cooked them in this pot, and I have some fond and fat in here. I am going to cook my onion in that, and then build my soup off of that. All right, those onions cooked down and they got all the fond off the bottom. It took a minute, but now we have a really pretty color. The onions are soft. I cooked in some garlic, added cumin and coriander, and now I think I'm gonna add in my broth. So I definitely went rogue. This is nowhere near the recipe in the book. I added my broth, my chicken, the tomatoes, and I ended up adding even more cumin. And then I added just a dash of salsa verde, because I still had that left over from when I made the white chicken chili. So it tastes pretty good. It's definitely a soup. And then we're gonna serve it with tortilla chips.
I want to go outside.
Say hello. Hello everyone. Tonight we're making prime rib. This is sitting out to come to room temperature because that's what the recipe says to do. And then we're gonna cook it in a really hot oven for a little bit of time, and then we're gonna cook it low and slow for the rest of the time. I am not very good at prime rib. I've done it a couple ways. I think once I seared it and then put it in the oven, and we didn't really like it. It just probably needed different seasonings. Another time I just put it in the crock pot because we have so many prime ribs, because we buy our beef in bulk, like we buy a half cow, and so we were just sort of sick of this fancy cut of meat, we're like, I'll just put it in a crock pot. And there are legit recipes for that. People do that. However, we didn't like it. So then it was like, well, it wasn't even good. So we're going to try to do it a legitimate way this time, and see how it goes. With that, I'm going to serve a new dinner roll recipe that I've never tried before. I don't think I actually have. I make Hawaiian buns, like, that kind of dinner roll, but we usually make those when we're making some sort of slider and putting stuff in there. I don't think I've ever made just plain dinner rolls. So we're going to try that tonight. And then I'm also going to do some smashed red potatoes, because we have a lot of potatoes to eat through. I bought a ton of potatoes last time from Azure, and normally they last really well in our hall cabinet back here. And I guess with the warmer weather, they started sprouting really, really fast. So they're all in the fridge, and we need to eat them right now. So that's what our side is going to be. So I'm not 100% sure how the timing is going to work out on the roast and the rolls. But I think if my calculations are right, that as soon as the roast comes out, it's supposed to sit for 30 minutes. And I'm hoping that in that 30 minutes, that's about when my buns will be baking. The recipe I'm using for these buns is from a trusted source. It's from Scratch Pantry, but I'm a little bit skeptical of the short rise time. Maybe that's part of the appeal of the recipe, is that it has such a short rise time, but I'm not quite sure I've ever made a roll that rose for as little time as they're suggesting. So I'm anticipating maybe letting it sit a little bit longer. Plus it's chilly today and our kitchen's kind of cold. Boy, this butter just does not want to spread as well as it normally does. Anyway. Okay, so while I was talking to you, my yeast has been sitting in a milk and honey mixture I'm just gonna pour that in. Whenever I use the KitchenAid to knead my dough, which is a wonderful thing, by the way, I usually just give it a quick stir real quick because I notice the dough hook has a hard time getting it started, but then it does a fantastic job kneading it. Okay, this dough is really, really sticky, and the recipe says if it's still really sticky, add an extra half a cup of flour. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, I've got my pretty dough ball in here. It says just rise for 20 to 30 minutes and then shape it into the individual buns, but I don't know, I'm gonna see what it looks like at 30 minutes and go from there. I have my oven preheating to 500 because it takes forever to do that. And then I was gonna start mixing up the prime rib rub, and I was reading the recipe again and I realized that I overlooked the fact that I was supposed to salt this while it was coming to room temperature, like before starting the hour of bringing it to room temperature. So I don't know, I'm sure that has a purpose. I don't know what that does, but I'm sure it does something. So I am just gonna salt it now, and it'll get 15 minutes of sitting here with salt on it. I hope you can't over salt it. I noticed there's no salt in the rub, I guess obviously because you're salting it now. So I guess I better be generous. Okay. It says to cover it with plastic wrap. I'm guessing this is just a hygiene thing. I don't think it really matters for the 15 minutes we have here, but there we go. I followed the rules. Okay, I've got some garlic here. These are garlic pucks from the freezer. It calls for 8 cloves of garlic. I'm just gonna say that's 8. Almost thawed enough to squish. One of them was. Those other 2 need a moment. The prime rib recipe I'm using calls for fresh herbs, but it's still winter technically, and we aren't growing any right now, so that's a little too bougie. We're probably not gonna go to the store and buy fresh herbs right now. So I'm just gonna use, let's see, it wants 2 teaspoons. Oh, I'm sorry, 1 teaspoon of fresh thyme. So what, like a 1/3 teaspoon of dried? Just gonna wing it. And then 2 teaspoons of rosemary. We'll just do 1. Although my rosemary is so, I need a pestle and mortar. And it hurts. Usually I crush herbs between my hands, but rosemary is one of those that it pokes you back. So it's just not my favorite thing to do. But here we go. All right, the fat that this all gets mixed in is olive oil, which is interesting. I think last time I did something like this, it was butter. So we'll see how this turns out. I think olive oil is cheaper than the butter we use, so I will happily use olive oil. Kind of looks like pesto. Okay, I'm really trying here. It says adjust your oven rack so that when you put the meat in the oven, it's like elevated into the middle of your oven. Probably should have done that before I cranked it to 500 because I just let all that heat out, but we're doing it. We're doing the thing. Okay, actually there is supposed to be salt in this. The recipe is, the way it's written, it doesn't specify until down in the like written out part that you do put salt in this. It just says sea salt at the top. So I hope we're not over salting, but here we go. So now I really need to figure out how I'm gonna cook this. Okay, it says place bone in roast with the bones down inside a roasting cast iron pan. I don't have one of those. Okay, what do you know? I do have a cast iron pan. I haven't used this in a really long time, so I forgot I had it. I don't like it because I don't like these ridges. It is so hard to clean. I mean, you're in there forever. But this will work tonight. All right, here goes. So these are the bones, bone side down. Does it matter which way I face it? Oh boy, I'm gonna overthink this. And then it says pat it dry. All right, it's patted dry, and now I'm supposed to spoon the sauce over the top. I'm not sure how I feel about this fat cap right here. Is that right? Because the bones are down here, so this is the part that's down in the pan. But it feels like I'm seasoning the fat that's gonna cook off. Okie dokie. There is our rub. My toxic trait is definitely that I like to cook fancy things, but I have 3 small children, and so most of my endeavors are interrupted or cut short or whatever. I wonder if that's gonna burn. I've got my potatoes here. They all had eyes, so they are trimmed. And they're gonna go on, I guess, as soon as the bread goes in the oven. Maybe I'll start just a little bit sooner since the stove takes forever to boil, because then once this comes to a simmer, it cooks for about 35 minutes. Okay, she's in there. Okay, while those are on their first 15 minutes, I'm gonna take a minute and get this on its second rise. Let's see, it wants it in 12 rolls. I guess they'll be bigger than the Hawaiian rolls I do. Usually those are 15. So 5 rows of 3. But this will just be 4 rows of 3. Some are going to be bigger. That's okay. We're not going for perfection. We're going for full bellies. All right, and then when I shape my rolls, I spin them down like that and try to pull them so there's one, spot where it all comes together underneath. I would really love a what's it called? Like a baker's mat, a pastry mat, is that what they're called? The little rubber thing that you lay down, and there's usually circles on it. You can roll your dough out and whatnot. But we have pets, and every single one of those that I've owned, along with the liners that you can put on a cookie tray, in lieu of parchment paper, there's like the reusable liners. So those and the pastry mats that I've tried to use, inevitably they get dropped on the floor. And after the first time they get dropped on the floor, they never get clean again. They absorb pet hair so well. I don't know if it's because I have cats and they have finer hair or what it is, but those things just, they're good until somebody accidentally drops it on the floor, and then it's done. I mean, you can wash it, and then still you lay it out and you're going to find a hair on it. And so we just threw them all away. I would love to own them again someday. We probably will not own cats again once our cats age out, and maybe I'll try again. Okay, I'm just about to drop it. It has such a lovely roast smell to it. It's not just the garlic that you can smell roasting. You can actually smell the meat searing. It smells so good. So I hope this comes out well. Quick side note. Tomorrow I am making a pumpkin coconut curry, and I want to serve it with a rustic artisan loaf. I often do our quick no-knead overnight bread for that, but I think I have time to pull off sourdough, and I was tempted because I noticed that when the weather is warmer, our sourdough rises faster, and so it's more predictable. In the winter, I don't like to cook long bread recipes just because, you think you're gonna feed it in the morning and then mix up your bread at night, but then night comes and it's not doing anything yet, and so I don't know. So this could go either way. It looks like it's starting to get some bubbles, but it's not it's not really going anywhere yet. So we'll see. If that's not doing much by tonight, I am going to just make the normal no-knead yeast bread, and this will just become German pancake tomorrow. Okay, here is the prime rib. It smells really good. Okay, so it needs to cook a lot longer. This was, let's see, 15 minutes in at 500, and then it said an extra 15 minutes per pound. So it's only about 3.5 pounds. So I did it for 30 minutes and then checked it. So I thought it was gonna be way further along than this, and it's not. So back in it goes. I have made the executive decision to bump the oven up to 375. It is still at 102, and it's been a solid hour, and this is not even a 4-pound roast. according to the recipe, it should be like well done by now. So it's 102, and I think it needs to cook hotter because the potatoes are already done. And these are more than ready to go in the oven. So this roast needs to finish. And now I know that it's gonna cook way longer next time. All right, everything is done. Here is the prime rib. Here are our mashed potatoes. These were so easy. It's just red potatoes, cooked until they're soft, and then you drain it, and then you add salt, cream cheese, butter. I'll put the recipe down below. So easy. And then here are the rolls. I think they overproofed a bit. There wasn't really anything that could be done about that. The oven just wasn't ready for them yet, but here we go. All right, y'all, talk to me about prime rib. I cooked it to 130, 135, and it looks like this. And I feel like prime rib often looks sort of raw. I don't know. I talked myself into thinking it was okay, and then my husband, who likes raw meat, you like your steaks rare, I guess, came in and asked if this was done because it looked very bloody. I don't know what to think. We're gonna start eating dinner with the more cooked side, and I'm gonna put this one back in the oven. Tell me what you think. Anyway, the rolls are amazing. We'll definitely make them again, and the potatoes are so good. And half of my meat is cooked. So let's eat. So the kids are in bed, and I'm cleaning the kitchen. And I looked over at my starter. All right. I think we're gonna have some sourdough bread tomorrow. It went up nicely with that hot kitchen. We had that oven at 500 for a while. Did the trick. Hey everyone, it's the last day. Tonight I'm doing a super easy dump meal. It's just a soup. It all goes in this pot. It's a pumpkin coconut curry. And I'm gonna serve it. Promise me you won't laugh at me. I'm gonna serve it with my sourdough loaf. Okay, I make a really good artisan loaf with yeast that we eat a lot, but since it's warmer and my sourdough starter is a little predictable, I want to start making sourdough again. Clearly, I have not made much sourdough bread. I think it sat too long before I got to it. I have to figure out kind of when my optimal rise windows are. So it might have been overproofed if I have the terminology right. But you know what? It's going to taste like bread, and it's going to be fine. And we're going to eat it. It's mostly for the kids anyway, in case they're picky about the soup. So that's my bread, and it's going to fill bellies. So I'm going to get all my ingredients in this pot, and I'll show you what goes in here. First things first, a little bit of this. It is really, really hot. So last time I did 2 tablespoons, and I cried. So I'm going to start with maybe like 2 teaspoons worth. And if it needs more flavor, I'll just add curry powder in there. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of curry powder. You can't overdo the curry. I don't think anyway. I'm going to add maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. A pint of broth. Can of diced tomatoes. Yes, honey. I am adding a canned pumpkin. I'd say it's about 2 cups that comes out of these total. Okay, now I'm gonna bring this to temperature. Just heat it up. And once it's going, I'm gonna add my red lentils. I've mentioned that this pumpkin is so soft. It's basically pumpkin puree. It's not safe to can pumpkin puree, but you can can it in cubes, and then you can use it basically just like pumpkin puree just because it's so soft already. We make pumpkin muffins and pumpkin bread out of this all the time, and there's no added work. You just dump it right in like you would your puree. This is simmering nicely. I am going to add my red lentils, and then I'm just gonna cook these for about 25 minutes, 20 minutes maybe, actually. Until they're soft. I'll come back and check them in 20 minutes and we'll go from there. And then I think I might immersion blend the soup just to get all the chunks of tomatoes out of there, because I have family that doesn't really like the chunks of tomatoes. So I should really put an apron on. I have a white shirt. 1 second. Gonna try this again. Now I'm gonna put my coconut milk in here. So you know how it forms a cap at the top? Well, once I was trying to push the cap out like this, and it it shot out, and then the milk shot so hard out of it that it all landed outside my pot. It was terrible. And that was the time I made this last, that it was really spicy. So I really needed all the coconut milk I could get, and I didn't get any. So, also, I tasted it already this time, and it's still pretty spicy, just with the 2 teaspoons instead of the 2 tablespoons. I'm hoping that this coconut milk mellows it out. If not, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've heard some people add an extra can of coconut milk, but I don't know if it'll make it too coconutty. I just tasted it, and that coconut did mellow it out quite a bit, but it is also pretty coconutty at this point. So there's no way I could add more anyway. I think it's delicious like this. So now I'm just gonna set it off to the side. It is still early, but I have some stuff going on later, and I have a lot of meal prep to see to this afternoon. So there is that. Here is our bread, and we will eat later. Anyway, thank you so much for joining for another week of meals. I hope this was helpful. I hope this gives you some ideas or inspiration, or at least encourages you to try different things in the kitchen, even if it doesn't go quite as planned at first. The next few weeks, I have a trip coming up, so I'll be out of town, so hopefully it doesn't mess the videos up, but it's possible I'll miss an upload. We will also be picking up our bulk pork, our bulk beef, and I'll record both of those. I also have some fun, different things I want to try the next month. I really want to try different hamburger buns. I want to do hamburger buns 3 different ways and see which one I like better. I want to try using potato flakes in one, and one will be a normal yeast recipe, and that sort of thing. I also want to experiment with some gluten-free desserts, because I've made some friends lately who are gluten-free, and it would just be nice to be able to take something that's a tried and true that is also gluten-free to gatherings with them. So I will post that video as well if anybody's interested in that. Yeah, so I hope you all have an awesome week. It is Monday here, so starting off strong, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.